Good evening. I'd like to call the work session for October the 7th to order at 5 p.m. Ms. Pearl. This time I'll turn it over to Dr. Spence. We have Mr. Holsey is on the phone. Dr. Juergen's running a few minutes late, and Ms. Sams will be a little bit late as well.
Good gracious.
Dr. Whitehead had to go out of town. She had a situation come up, so I'm gonna cover her parts tonight. So this is our COVID report. Just kind of go through it. You can see that our transmission index has gone down and it's steadily going down. This is as of yesterday. So, go ahead. This is a historical look at COVID cases in Glynn County, and you can see where we hit our peak about August the 28th, and we're back down to where we were a couple, 3 weeks before school started, so doing much better now. Go ahead. Same type of data, just a different look there. You can see it's kind of crunched in there since school started on the left, and then the whole year. And you can see our 7-day average is 9.3 cases. There were 3 cases confirmed yesterday. This is breaking it down by age. You can see between 0 and 9 and 10 and 19, those is where we really focus as far as our students. You can see that peaked up and went down. Pretty much everything else has done the same, so all of it's following somewhat the same trend. Go ahead. This is really what we started looking at. Dr. Davis at the DPH gave us a report based on ages 4 to 10, which we feel will be elementary age kids, 11 to 13, which we feel will be middle school, 14 to 18, which we feel are high school age kids, understanding that not all 4-year-olds and not all 18-year-olds are in school. You can see that on August the 7th, the numbers started going up all the way down, and then last week, at the end of last week, there were 10 cases last week in Glynn County of school-age students. Now, we figure about 85 to 90% of all school-age students attend our schools. So if you look at 10, then you figure 8.5 or so. Go ahead. We see the percentage of positive tests is going down steadily. Hopefully that data will continue to drop. And according to the DPH, if it's less than 5%, that's considered low, and we're at 4.8% as of last week. And you can see the past week, the number of cases by age right there. Go ahead. This is our data as of right now, right about an hour and a half before the meeting. I pulled this off of our site. You can see that 13 students currently are out with COVID, a positive test, and 10 staff members are currently out with a positive test. You can see the schools. We're probably not going to add the DPH numbers in this week because our numbers are actually higher than what they reported last week. And the way that could happen is someone could have tested positive on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Remember, the numbers that were reported last week we get on Mondays. And so that number is really consistent with what we're seeing. So our numbers and the DPH numbers have kind of gotten closer together. Go ahead. Which, of course, the DPH is probably a lot closer than ours. This is how we reported last week. We were at 0.18, and you can see adding in the DPH numbers of about 11 more students we predicted, we would have been at 0.26. Either way, we're in the green pretty steady. And then the next slide shows what it looked like on September the 9th. And remember, we said we had 107. The DPH actually reported 100 more than we did. And that's where we come up. That's when we started doing that. But again, I've talked to Dr. Whitehead and Julie Jordan, who is actually monitoring this for us now, and we're not going to report the DPH unless it's just out of whack. Okay. Scroll on down, and you can see the vaccines. It's pretty impressive. In the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've gotten over 2,000 more people vaccinated in Glynn County, so that's pretty good. And hopefully people will take heed to that and get their vaccination. So, are there any questions about our COVID report, about what's going on in the school system in terms of that? I hate to use the word back to normal, but I pray that we're really close to back to normal and we can start getting some learning, serious learning. Any questions? No? All right.
A quick thing about COVID in the hospital, let me go ahead because some people ask. Our numbers as far as what we have gone way down, and I've even sent y'all some of the lower numbers where you can see, and it's still dropping. The very sick hadn't started dropping yet. There's a lag. So the coming in will go down first, the inpatients will go down second, and the ICU will go down third. Although it's going down, don't get me wrong, but we're not at 24, which is where we used to be for, you know, the life of the hospital, basically.
Right.
But numbers are going down at the hospital as well, so it's good news.
I want to remind you that there were several weeks last year that we would go without any COVID cases. So, I mean, there were probably 6 times last year we would go the whole week without a COVID case. So, we're still not out of the woods yet, but we're certainly looking a lot better.
I don't know if y'all know about the tent right by the hospital where people get COVID tested. We were doing about 1,000 a day. We're doing about 500 a week. So those numbers are dropping, thank goodness, too.
Yeah.
But it's because other numbers are dropping that people are not testing anymore. But it's dropping, too, so
Good.
we'll see.
The next thing I want to talk about is our achievement scores from the past year. This is a lot of information, and each of you have this, and this is posted on Assembly. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So we're talking about our grades 3 through 8 tests, and then of course our high school end of course tests. Physical science was only counted for middle school students who took the high school coursework in the state last year. So you can see the 4 tests that, remember, we used to have 8 in the course tests. Now there are only 4 of them, and that will be used to predict our CCRPI at the end of this year. We were not given a CCRPI score for the 2019, for the 2020 year, or for last year, 2021. So we'll be given a CCRPI score for at the end of this year. So go ahead and while I have a hard time seeing.
I'm sorry.
I'm blind. There, I can see now. All right, so I'm not going to hit on all of them because I'm sure you guys can read this, but what I want to do is I wanted to go back and say, okay, I don't want to compare year to year only. I want to compare how we did versus the state and versus our RESA, which basically stretches up to Effingham County, Statesboro, and back down. So, because we knew we were going to go down, but I want to see how far down did we go compared to other places, the state of Georgia and the RESA. You also need to understand that in Glynn County, we gave our test to every possible kid. We did not eliminate anyone. So most of our students were face-to-face, and then even our virtual kids, we would bring them in. In many places, the students did not take the test. So when you look at the bigger cities, like 60%, 50% of those kids would take the test. So maybe they had 100,000 students take the test 2 years ago and only 50,000 this past year. So the numbers could be skewed whichever way you think they might be skewed. Looking at Glynn in 2017, the green is passing, levels 2, 3, and 4. The blue is level 3 and 4. So looking at Glynn versus the state, in 2017, for 3rd grade math, we were 1 point behind the state and 1 point behind the RESA. If you progress all the way to 2021, you see we were 4 points ahead of the state and 4 points ahead of the RESA. That's the way I like to look at test data rather than just going simply year by year. I want to look at it longitudinal. We did lose some ground, but not as much as folks thought. You could go on to 4th grade, and I'll just kind of hit the highlights. You can see 4th grade, for instance, we dropped by 6 points between 2019 and 2021 of the folks passing. We went from 86 to 76, well, 10 points. And whereas the state only dropped 7 points, so probably not as good at looking at that on 4th grade math. Go ahead. 5th grade math, the state and the RESA dropped tremendously in the last 2 years, where we just barely dropped. I've also noticed the kids who've had Eureka Math over time. I was really concerned if that was actually working, and just with the limited data I have, I think it might be. And so we're going to get to see some more test scores because we're into the 7th grade now with Eureka Math. So go ahead. 3rd grade ELA, you can see we dropped between 2019 and 2021, but not as much as the state. Go ahead. Same thing, 4th grade language arts. We did drop 9 points in between those two, where the state dropped 10, and the RESA dropped only 4. Go ahead. And you can just kind of look at those numbers and see where we're at. Any questions about what I'm talking about here? Any questions about what's going on as far as the data? 5th grade language arts, we only dropped 2 points in the 2 years with the time off, so looks like the RESA and the state did about the same. So go ahead. You can keep going. Now let's look at 6th grade math. So in sixth grade math, if you go back to 2017, we were at 68% passing. All the way to 2019, we were at 80. So we did make some gains, and then we lost some area in that time off between 2019 and 2021. We lost 10 points. You can see the state lost 9 and the RESA lost 12 points. So when you look at the data that way, maybe not as bad as we thought it might be. Go ahead. I also want to remind you that about 96% of our students took that test, whereas I'm not sure it was that way in other places, especially the larger cities. So, 7th grade math, go ahead. And then 8th grade math.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yes, sir.
Two things. One, this is how I like stuff. I like to compare us to the state and RESA because that tells you how you're actually doing compared to your peers, which is what you want to know. The one thing I would like to see, if you could find it, is if there are other people, other places that are testing their highest set. Let me put it this way. Miami SAT scores, best everywhere, and they test every single student. And so that matters. But if you don't test but your top 5%, that's not.
Actually, the best in the
Not
nation
bad.
is the state of Mississippi has the highest test scores, because in Mississippi they don't have to take the SAT to go to college. So guess who takes the SAT in Mississippi? So they win every year. But yes, you're
Right.
right. And when we get to SAT, I'm gonna show you something about that too, because our test scores jumped up on the SAT. But I know why. So.
I just said that because you said that you weren't sure.
Right.
At the state.
Well, I don't want to say it on the air, but I mean, there were certain cities that did not test.
Right.
And
Which is fine, and
yeah.
that's all I need to hear.
Mhm.
Certain cities did not test. We're
Yeah.
comparing to them as well.
Right, that's right. Go ahead and go to high school. Stop right here, physical science. Again, our physical science students, they actually did pretty good last year. When you look at the number of students, there was 8th grade students taking a high school credit. They did much better than the state and much better than our RESA did. So that was actually really good. Go ahead. All right, so U.S. history. One of the things we've been doing really well over the last 5 or 6, 7 years is increasing our U.S. history and our economic scores as a whole here in the school system. Well, last year, of course, you can see we went from 87 in 2019 to 72. That was one of our bigger drops, 15% less students passing. But the state dropped and the RESA dropped, but that was a huge drop that we had. I think I know the reason why, and I think we're in shape to fix it for next year. Go ahead. Biology, not really a big drop in biology. You can see that we only went down 4 points, but the state and the RESA stayed about the same there, looking between 19 and 2021. Go ahead. In American literature, pretty big drop, almost 10 points, going from 88% passing to 78%. And, you know, that was a shock, to be honest. I did not think we would drop as far in high school language arts, but that was a shock there. But then you can see that the state dropped a pile, and so did the RESA. Go ahead. And then Algebra I, we almost scored the same as we did the previous year, which was pretty good. And then you can see the RESA and the state dropped tremendously in those two areas. And then finally we have our SAT, and this is what you're talking about, Mr. Madala, where the green represents the total score, and the blue is reading and writing, and the yellow is math. I guess it's yellow. I'm kind of colorblind, but our score was almost 1,099, and you can see that the state increased as well as the RESA. I think part of the reason for that increase is only a few students took the test. A lot of the smaller colleges and universities did not require the SAT during the COVID pandemic. Only some of the out-of-state, maybe some of them. So not all the students had to take the test as seniors to get into college. Okay. Any questions about our data? One thing I can promise you is this time next year, those scores will be much higher.
I hope so. So those are basically everything's being correlated to COVID situation.
Well, I mean, I'm certainly not going to make any I mean, we had kids out of school for 150 days, and then we had some kids in virtual at the beginning of the year. Remember last year we started off with about 66% of our kids face-to-face. We ended up with about 94%. And so certainly we would rather have them face-to-face. Certainly we all know that more learning is going to take place when they're face-to-face. So everything dropped across the state, not just the Glynn County school system. So, any other questions about the test?
These numbers, you know, I think we all predicted a drop. I feel for the teachers and the administrators for the next few years to try to raise that bar back up, but I'm highly confident that we're up for that task. And it's going to be interesting to see, over the next few years, what the consequence of us being out of school, having to quarantine, all the factors that we've been discussing over the last 2 months, actually a year and a half, But I'm confident that our teachers are up for that task.
And one thing that I've told our cabinet and I've told our principals is I don't want to get back to where we were. I want to go above that.
Right.
And I want to do it next year, not 2 years from now, not 3 years. I want to be above where we were when we started this 2017. And I think we can do that. And I think our teachers are dedicated to that task, and I think our principals are. And I feel like if we can just stay in school, we can get there.
Yeah.
So, and we spent a lot of our COVID money, or CARES Act money, to kind of catch some of these kids up, and hopefully that stuff will work. But there's nothing better than a good teacher in that classroom.
Right.
You can buy all the programs you want to buy, but you've got to have good instruction. So.
I've said that from day one. You can have a C or D rating program with an A teacher and make it work. You can have an A program with a D teacher, and it's pointless.
That's right.
Hey, Mike is asking, you said here that Governor Kemp signed a bill doing away with Eureka Math. Have you heard anything about that?
I've not heard
You have
anything about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have not heard anything about it.
Okay.
I know that the math standards are going to change. They're going to start implementing differently in 2 years. They were going to do it next year, but they've given us I hope the state board is going to give us another year, and Eureka Math is supposed to change. So. But I can give a presentation about Eureka Math if y'all want to, too. I went to a training there. I wasn't a believer at first, but I'm slowly becoming one.
I've heard a lot of parents and some teachers that were against it, but like I think me and you talked a week or two ago, and what you can look at is that there's fifth graders, sixth graders, seventh graders now that's had it for this 4 years that we've been doing it now. So you'll be able to see if you should be able to look, but with COVID, it's kind of.
Yeah, you can't compare previous year to previous year, but you can compare us to other counties that haven't been, and you can see where we're standing. My next comparison in future years, we will be comparing ourselves to Camden, to Bryan, and to Effingham, which is the counties that we are right there with, or maybe a little below. Because if we want to be the best school system in the state of Georgia, we have to start by being the best school system in southeast Georgia. And so when you start seeing our comparisons here in the next year or next 6 months, we'll be comparing ourselves to those 3 counties. So. All right. So let's see. Next I have facilities update, Mr. Blackerby.
Hey.
Good evening.
Ms. Brad, if you want to, just go to the food report. I'll just go through the projects from there, if that's all right.
Sounds good to me.
Might be the cleanest way to do it. Is on page 1 there. If you look at GA Phase 11, and the way. GA Phase 11, the auxiliary gym, which is a gym addition we're doing, and it says that the project is progressing on schedule. If you've ridden down Albany Street, you can see we've got the structural steel going up. We got the block layers have got all of the external walls for the classroom portion of it, and some of the interior walls there. So things are moving pretty good there on schedule. No issues. We did mention when Mr. Tootin was here last week about possibly this would be the time before we finish that to do any renovations that we need to do in the existing gym while we have boots on the ground and are currently doing the work there on the addition. And the other advantage to doing that is we have state capital outlay funds, renovation funds that are eligible for that for the renovation of the existing gym. We've already used some of that money on the HVAC system, which is going to be tied to both of them. But Mr. Tootin and I walked through beginning of last week to do an assessment of what needed to be done there. I believe it was asked last week that we kind of start trying to work on a scope of work and get some pricing, preliminary pricing, to see what it would cost before we move forward. And the things we're looking at is some lighting upgrades, the handicap accessories, handicap railing on the seats, as well as some handicap upgrades in the restrooms. That building was built before a lot of the AD, or before any of the AD requirements were in place, so it does need some work in that area, as well as modernizing the restrooms a little bit, and the locker room restrooms. It's all original in there, and the locker rooms, they do not have any air conditioning in them. The only air they get is what is pulled in through the doorways. So those would be some things we're looking at preliminarily, and this is just a true ballpark guess because we don't have any hard numbers on anything. We're thinking, at the most, $750,000. That would be at the most. A lot of that would depend on how deep we wanted to go into the cosmetics of things, but the building itself's in good shape. It just needs, again, primarily those restroom and locker room upgrades. So, but we hope to, in the coming months, we'll have some more concrete information to present on that. Dropping down to the new Altama Elementary, as it says there, we are hoping to be substantially complete by the end of next week. Things that are primarily outstanding now is the gym work, which the flooring should be complete there. If not by tomorrow afternoon, by Monday it should be complete. The external metal work is nearing completion. Tomorrow looks like we'll have some rain that may hold them back another day or so, but we do hope to have that finished by the end of next week too, and then we'll roll into completing the punch list. So
I know when those kids are going to be fired up when they come back Tuesday if they get to go in that
if they
gym.
get to go in that, yeah.
That's all they walk by that gym and they're just looking. Is the gym ready? So they'll be excited. That's good.
So we're getting close there. But if you want to move forward to page 4 in the packet, eSplosh receipts this month, as you may have already seen or may not, were around $2.5 million. And the next page, Ms. Britt has the comparison chart, which, again, we were at, I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty, around $2.5 million, which, when I first saw this, I thought to myself, how did we go down lower than we were last year at this time? And so I did talk to Steve Salmon about that. And there was, apparently last year in September, there was about a $900,000 adjustment due to some sort of an audit at the state level that came back to it. Yeah. So in actuality, our collections were around $2.1 million last year during the same time frame, as opposed to the $2.5 million this time. So that's the adjustment there. We can go to the next page, which is the current eSplosh 4 projects, which are Needwood, Gold Niles, and Oglethorpe. Needwood and Oglethorpe Point, we are in the process right now of moving the furniture and the teachers over to the classrooms that they'll be occupying as we start the work on their rooms. At Needwood, we're doing one wing. The 800 wing is the wing we're working on now. Principal over there has already identified where she can place the teachers. The teachers have already packed up to move, and we'll be moving furniture tomorrow so that we can occupy that wing to start work there at Needwood. At Oglethorpe Point, we're doing 6 classrooms at a time, because that's all the principal could accommodate as far as moving people around the building. We had to change our plan on that really this week on the fly. We were having a difficult time trying to figure the best way to occupy half of a wing and be the least disruptive as far as safety for the students, as far as getting workers in and out, as far as getting supplies in and out. So we came up with an alternate plan for dividing the hallway straight down the center. We're basically going to build a wall from one end of the hallway to the other end of the hallway, straight down the center with some soundproofing on it. And we're going to work on the 100 hallway. We're going to do all the work on the right-hand side of the hallway. Then we're going to flip and do the left-hand side of the hallway after we get done there. So same thing, started moving furniture there actually earlier in the week, and that should be completed by tomorrow, and we'll be ready to actually have the contractors in there to begin work next week. Goal now is a lot of work going on there. We've pretty much fully demoed the building. Spray foam insulation that needed to be replaced has been put in. Flooring is on site and ready to be installed. Same thing with we're waiting on the painters, and that should begin next week. Probably our biggest challenge right at that one with all of them is the availability of the HVAC equipment. We're trying to work down the firm delivery schedule on that. That will be our determining factor on all these projects. But goal now, since we're doing the entire building at one time, getting that number of units is a little more challenging. We do at Needwood and Oglethorpe, since we're doing a small portion of the building, we have been able to secure those units. So we hope by next week we have that part of the project worked out. And Satilla Marsh is on there. We have done no work there. We are. It was part of the capital outlay application that was submitted by Glynn County Schools last fall, I guess. But we have placed that on the back burner. We have more than enough going on right now that we don't need to begin that one yet. So, but that's in general project summary there. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Blackerby? Thank you, sir. So next, we're going to go to the Employee Assistance Program with Ms. Seals.
Good evening. Hope everyone's having a great day. This year, we are able to start or reinstate our Employee Assistance Program. After an RFP went out, we were able to come up with Deer Oaks EAP Services, and this is just a brief presentation on that. The EAP program definitely helps staff members with stress and anxiety, time management, and various other things. It's another way that we are supporting our staff members, not just now, but especially now since the pandemic began. This particular program also offers support in other areas, including financial challenges, how to handle those things, and health and wellness challenges. The main reason we went with this program is because there's 24-hour program access. They can call a helpline, or they can connect with it through a phone app called iConnect You, and a Live Connect instant messaging as well too. Who will benefit from this? All of our employees, any of their dependents in their household, anyone who lives in their household will be covered by this, and coverage even extends up to 6 months post-employment. What's available? Short-term counseling. Each person is allowed up to 6 sessions with the counselor. There are 15 local providers included in this program in Glynn County, as well as 10 in Camden County. They can choose to do those telephonically, or they can do those face-to-face. However, if they do those face-to-face, because of the current COVID situation, they have to sign a waiver in order to participate face-to-face. Of course, sometimes you will need more assistance beyond 6 visits, so they will work with the employees' health insurance in order to support them through that process. Of course, they also connect people to other agencies in our community if they need additional assistance. The next slide kind of goes through beyond the 6 in-person or face-to-face or telephonic sessions. There are other programs that can support them, mindful-based stress reduction, telephonic coaching, life coaching, as well as some computerized cognitive behavior therapy, which works with them through various situations, including stress management. Some of the referrals that are there, they make referrals to legal services, financial services, and any of those other agencies within our community. They also offer critical incident response, which if there's any traumatic event that may occur in our workplaces or community, they are available. We have so many hours available that we can use to respond to that in our schools to support our students or staff as well. So I thought that was a really great incentive or part of this program. The next slide just kind of shows you some of the collateral. Our supervisors received an email with all of this information attached to it, but our staff members will be receiving wallet cards and brochures and posters that talk about the particular ins and outs of the EAP program as well. Also, too, we'll be sending out a monthly newsletter to staff members and supervisors that have various different topics that they can read about. Also, they have a website. We have a website that's specific for Glynn County that they can go in and review information from the EAP program. So that's available. In regards to implementation, our very first day was October the 1st, 2021. We have had some staff members already inquire about using it, and we've supported them through that. We've been meeting bi-monthly, with an implementation specialist. A launch letter has gone out to principals and supervisors already, and program promotion collateral, as I just stated, will be going out to staff members next week, along with monthly newsletters that will be going out. This is something that we are funding via our CARES Act funds, and we do believe it's a very good investment, particularly now coming through the pandemic.
What's the numerical value? How much?
It's $1.09 per employee per month.
$1.09 per employee,
So it's less than $30,000 a year,
so it's like $2,000 a month.
give or take.
Roughly, yes.
Can we have a 6-month report of how much use we had?
Yes. As a matter of fact, that was one of the things I've already asked them for.
Yeah, I knew it was coming.
Any other questions for Ms. Seals?
I do, Dr. Spence.
Go ahead.
It's just a quick one. It's a little off topic, but just something maybe for the future. I ran into one of our lead custodians the other day. We were having a conversation about pay rate, turnover, and that sort of thing. And I assume this may apply to some of our bus drivers as well. But he mentioned that he's got a lot of feedback that if there's any way, and listen, I know this would probably be a payroll system nightmare, but when you're making that kind of money, I think that getting paid every 2 weeks may be a huge difference for them. And this is just feedback directly from him. I never really thought of it. I know it's tough even for some teachers to get paid monthly, but I didn't know if y'all got any feedback about that, or maybe something we could explore, or even find out if it's really something they would be interested in or not, or if it'd be feasible or not. But just for the future, if we ever do surveys or have meetings with them, just to ask that question, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Seals? Thank you very much. And now Ms. Preston.
Ms. Haywood.
Oh, Ms. Haywood. Got my glasses on and still missed it.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hope you all are doing well. Good to see everybody tonight. In addition to providing additional support to our staff, we wanted to give you a brief update on one of the services that we are expanding for our students. As many of you know, the Telehealth Services were first introduced to Glynn County Schools several years ago as a pilot. However, we are pleased to expand those services throughout our school community. Glynn County Schools is expanding its partnership with the Global Partnership for Telehealth by having a dedicated nurse on staff who will work with our school nurses at each site to schedule appointments for registered and participating students. Telehealth, also known as telemedicine, is an innovative program that delivers quality health services to students who want to participate. Telehealth is done primarily online through a secure internet connection via computer, tablet, or smartphone. The purpose, of course, of expanding these services is for us to help reduce the number of missed classes for students and class time, and for them to optimize instruction by providing access to these services for students during the school day. Next slide, please. Services offered include acute care, such as sore throats, earaches, colds, rashes, but services also can include minor injuries, monthly medication management, and teletherapy. A host of providers are used to provide these services to our students, and our telehealth nurse works with our contact at the Georgia Partnership for Telehealth to identify the best providers for the services that are needed. Next slide, please. All students who are enrolled in the Glynn County School System qualify to participate in the program, and to begin benefiting, families, all they have to do is register through the completion of an enrollment packet. Telehealth accepts most insurances, and for those families that may not be insured, often a sliding scale is accepted. I think one of the main benefits to this is that parents can have their students seen by a licensed physician or healthcare provider for acute illnesses without having to attend in person. The only appointments, however, that require that a parent attend are those teletherapy appointments. So if a student is experiencing a mental health challenge and they need some additional support through therapy, the parent would have to be present for those. But the telehealth nurse is present for all appointments. And so, again, we started the pilot at one site, and we've been able to expand that beyond Needwood. We also have students that are being served at Greer, Glenn Middle, and we are now looking at expanding to Glenn Academy as well. Our hope is that we'll be able to expand to all of our school sites within the end of this school year. And so what I'd like to do is have Nurse Cooper and I come back in the spring to give you all an update on where we are and what those services look like and some of the benefits that we've had as a result. We felt it was important to provide you with some update as to where we are with the addition of the position.
Consent. Where's the consent?
The consent is a part of the enrollment packet that has to be completed in order for a student to be able to participate.
In school?
In school, yes, you have to have permission from the parent, and part of that is through that enrollment packet that the parent signs to say that they have permission to participate. Or are you talking about from healthcare providers?
I'm talking, if a kid comes into the emergency department and they're under 17 or they're 17 and not pregnant or have their own kid or whatever, you have to have parental permission when it's a non-life-threatening injury. There's not
That's
implied
correct.
consent.
That's
So my
correct.
question is, where is, and I believe in this 1,000%, and
Yes,
I was
sir.
there in the pilot program doing classes, and it surprised it's taken this long to get out because it's very good. But I was just wondering about the consent part of it. If you're a student here in Glenn County, because you said all students in Glenn County would have access.
Who are enrolled in our school system.
Right, so, yes, I'm sorry, yes, exactly. So if they're enrolled in the school system, they're signing a consent that they send home at the beginning of school year, saying we have telehealth and could be provided for your child, blah, blah, blah.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's where that consent comes from.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Good. That's good.
And we also, for those families that are, say you have a parent that has just enrolled their child into our district, that enrollment packet is available online, and our schools are providing those to parents as well. So let's say if their kid is anything like one of mine, they may not have brought it home. It's online for them to download, and they can complete it and submit it to their school and get registered. But yes, the consent is a part of that packet.
And it's a good program.
It
And
is.
It
It's
helps
phenomenal.
kids that don't have access.
That's exactly
As well
right.
as kids that won't have access because they don't want to.
That's right.
So, and so, real good program. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Is this a CARES Act funded
Yes,
as
sir.
well? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Found a way to pay for it.
Any other questions for Ms. Haywood? No, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And now, Ms. Preston, your own.
There she is.
Okay, first thing we have is the June financial report. You know, my report to the state is due September 30, so that's when we finalize for June. And so we, again, had another good year. First, I'll go over the budget amendments that we did in June and then go over the actual report. So budgeted revenues were decreased by $32,100 and expenses were decreased by $40,600 to reduce the math and science grant that we have. Budgeted revenues and expenditures were increased by $127,000 for on-behalf payments made by the DOE. The DOE, there's this old law out there where the DOE pays on our behalf for a handful of of our maintenance folks, their health insurance. And it's because they pay that on our behalf, we have, accounting purposes, you have to book the expense and the revenue. Budgeted revenue and expenditures were decreased by $112,300 to remove the school safety grant. Budgeted expenses were increased to record an operating transfer of $8 million to the local capital projects, the workers' compensation, and the unemployment fund. $6 million went to capital projects, $1 million went to workers' comp, and $1 million went to unemployment. Year-to-date revenues were 105% of the budget, so we collected a significant amount more than what was budgeted. Local tax receipts for June were a little over $1 million. The year-to-date expenditures were 95.6. Obviously, we had a bunch of savings there due to several things which we'll cover. So for the revenues, car sales, I know you know, were through the roof last year, and we collected $2 million over the budget for new car sales. Refinancing, the rates were so low, $2 million over budget for refinance. And then the collection rate came in higher than 98% that we budgeted, and that brought in an additional $2 million also. So for the expenditure side, we used CARES Act 1 for salaries and benefits to offset the austerity reduction that we got from the state for this school year. That was $3.4 million. So that's where you see the savings in salary and benefits. That's where most of that is. Then the other savings we had, which was unexpected, we ordered the Dell refresh that we do every year. We ordered those in March, and they didn't get here until July, so I couldn't pay for them until this school year. So $1 million that should have come out of last year will end up coming out of this year on top of another $1 million. But it caused a savings, so basically that savings goes into fund balance to pay for this year's expenditure, excess expenditure. And then another, this year we've been identifying things that could be moved into the CARES Act funds that we got. And a couple of those things were Edgenuity. CARES Act picked up that. CARES Act picked up all of summer school and our virtual school costs, and that produced savings. So with those savings, I moved $6 million into the local capital projects fund, which we're about to. We bought those, ordered those buses, but they haven't got here yet. I don't know the status of those. $1 million into workers' comp and $1 million into unemployment, because we're self-insured for that. So we have to keep money in there based off of our own salaries and benefits. One of the things that's on the agenda tonight is the police cars. We're trying to refresh the SRO cars and the maintenance vehicles that are like falling apart. And the only thing available right now is we're going to do Explorers for the resource officers. They're available, and that's on the agenda tonight. Are there any questions for the June financial report?
The decreases due to the grants, is that something that didn't renew or just renewed at a lower amount?
Didn't what?
We didn't get another grant once?
Okay,
Or
so.
did we apply for another round?
No, CARES Act was given to us. We had 3 CARES Act grants given to us.
I'm talking about the grant, the budget changes. You talked about a couple
The
of
security
grants.
grant?
And the other one.
That was a
too.
one-time grant, and that was the balance of what fell out into this school year, into last school year.
Okay.
That was not needed. And then the math and science grant, that's actually determined every year based on your teachers, and the teachers with less than 5 years experience get a stipend from the state. And so depending on your teacher base, that grant kind of fluctuates every year.
Okay. That school safety grant, is that what we use to create the vestibules
Yes.
in a lot of our schools? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I stripped that out of the general fund.
Thank you.
So, I don't know if you've noticed, but we're starting this school year with $28 million in the bank.
CARES money?
Yes, we are, because, I mean, we're doing things that I know we're gonna want to keep. Some things are one-time things, but, you know, we've bought so many Chromebooks, and they're gonna need to be refreshed. So I've already talked to Scott, the final year of our CARES Act grant, the summer of 2024, we're gonna refresh Chromebooks, and they'll last another 5 years. So, but that's probably close to $4 million.
So that's 3/4 of the savings right there.
Mm. The other thing I wanted to talk to the board about tonight is we have an old policy on the books. Years ago, the auditor suggested that you manually sign check. You come up with a dollar amount, and it used to be $5,000 was what everybody used to do. Any check over $5,000 required manual signatures from 2 people, and so I have myself and Dr. Spence, and then the assistant superintendents and HR on the signature card. And nobody is doing this anymore, and mainly because with the digital age, you know, everybody is digitally signing checks. The banks, we met with Coastal Bank just last week because they transitioned their software, and I told them what we were looking at doing, and they said, we don't even look at that. So banks don't look at signatures anymore. So what I came up with, I talked to Dr. Spence instead, and because he still wants to have a set of eyes on the checks that we issue every week. And so every week when we do check registers on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to let him look at them and sign off on them, and we keep those for 7 years for documents or retention. So we would like to do away with this policy.
So you're not saying change the amount, you're just saying.
Do away with it.
Don't have 2 signatures. I thought if you print on the checks that 2 signatures are required for amounts over a certain amount, I thought that kind of made the bank liable for running through a check.
That is a local policy that we have. The banks are not looking at signatures.
I just didn't know if that would be protecting us if we had that on there and the bank let it go.
Mm-mm.
At one time, the banks were they were checking and verifying that there were 2 signatures. So you said because we're going digital.
Years ago.
Right, so
I'm
now
talking
because
years
digital-
ago, they may have done it, but now they do not.
So you saying now because we're going digital, they done away with that?
I don't know. I think they told us that, you know, people can deposit via phones now, apps, and they make it through the, nobody looks, that's not a part of their process anymore. So, it's an unnecessary policy really, because if on a Tuesday and Thursday when I bring him the check register, that's a set of eyes looking at it after I look at every purchase order that comes through. I sign off on everything before we issue checks. He only looks at ones over $5,000 when I take them to him and need a second signature. This way, he's going to be looking at every check that gets issued on Tuesdays and Thursdays, no matter what the amount, and sign off on it. So really, it's actually a better internal control than 2 signatures on checks over $5,000.
When I polled the superintendents in our RESA, I'm not going to say they laughed, but they couldn't believe we were so far behind the times. I mean, very few even, they don't sign checks. So.
Actually, this was put in place before I was even the CFO. I think it's been going on for 20-something years.
So now to remove a policy, Mr. McDonald, do we have to leave it up for a month, or is that just something you guys do? How does
That's kind of just the standard. You don't have to. We have an emergent need for something, but if it's been here forever, 20-something years, I'm sure months not hurt anything. But shouldn't we change the policy and say that the superintendent will, look at the checks before? There's no, I guess my question is, where's the accountability? Of a check over $5,000.
Right now, I actually see the check and I actually sign my name to it. I will see the check I will see all checks now. I'll see more checks than I do now, because I'll see the register.
So wouldn't there be good to have a policy that says superintendent will evaluate the register Tuesdays and Thursdays or whatever?
In other words, amend this policy to
Yeah,
a,
Okay.
to fit, to put a small account, and it's not, I mean, I trust her with
Right.
my money, okay?
Right.
So, it's not that, it's just, she leaves, everything changes and whatever, and, somebody who we've had before comes in and just says, oh, good, I can just write these checks. And there is an accountability.
Right.
piece,
No,
just
I'm fine with that.
a small accountability piece on this.
Okay, I'll change the verbiage.
That's-
Just, you want
Does
the
that work for
verbiage
you?
changed to what we say we're gonna do.
Yes,
Okay. And we
Okay.
can bring that to you Tuesday night.
because if you wrote a, $100,000 check, you signed it, you cashed it, you ran off with it, or did run off with it, or we found out, hey, he's giving himself little bonuses. We'd say, I'm not saying you would do that.
Right, I
but
understand.
The next person could,
That would have to go
Well,
through my
that's-
office, and he would never be able to do that.
and I believe that too. But anyway, just a small
No,
accountability.
I understand. I understand that.
Thank you.
The third thing we have is a piece of software that allows the teachers and the students to do interactive PowerPoints. It goes with the Google platform that they're currently using, and it's a 3-year purchase called PeerDeck, and it's $44,550 a year for a total of $133,650. And this is coming out of CARES Act.
Is this something that's needed?
It's something that the teachers are requesting. It's not included in the current Google platform that they're using. Of course, it's an add-on, and they wanted to be able to get it.
I can get Dr. Green in here and she can answer the questions if you guys have questions about it. And basically, if teachers have created a PowerPoint that they teach from,
hey,
go ahead, get it.
So, basically in secondary schools, our teachers are definitely PowerPoint heavy to the point where we're losing engagement. And so teachers wanted something that would afford them the opportunity to make our PowerPoint more interactive. And so using Google, they can set up decks where kids can actually interactively progress through them or independently progress through them at their own rate, but complete assignments. The teacher can actually literally see when students respond in real time to the questions and adjust the structure accordingly. But it really is to improve engagement for our learners because engagement is extremely low. And then the PowerPoint, my soapbox is that PowerPoint is digested by the teacher. The teacher has digested complex text or something and created a summary. This affords the students again an opportunity to share some of that cognitive load. And so now they'll have to digest information and work to answer questions and build their own decks. You have to really see it to see how powerful it is, but it's definitely something that I'm leery about saying needed, but definitely will be resourceful if we use it how it's designed to make schools interactive. Could we make classes more engaging without it? Yeah, but it's a tool that's created and it definitely makes it easier, intuitive. It gives teachers also the opportunity to monitor every kid in the class and what they're doing and control their devices. So once you log into PeerDeck with a code, you pretty much locked into that actual activity and you can't surf unless the teacher releases you to do something else. So it definitely also provides more control to make sure students are attentive. So it's definitely a great resource. I think it's worth us taking an opportunity to give teachers this.
And when you say secondary students, are you also including the secondary students at the Glynn Learning Center?
That hadn't been a request because they're on Edgenuity.
Yeah, they don't-
So
they don't-
there's something totally different. Their teachers are facilitators. They're not actually providing, direct instruction.
Will it be available to elementary, middle level?
It's middle. It's
Okay.
it's available 6-12. I'm not entirely sure if Ms. Miller is going to mandate it, but I know that it will be available K-12 for all teachers to use. It's definitely going to be something that I push for 6-12.
So I'm like envisioning when you're on a Zoom kind of thing and they run a poll type thing, like you could do things like that where you're getting interactive
Oh,
responses?
absolutely. You can do polls, they can write, the teacher can automatically, look at the students' responses and then, give feedback on the writing. There's so many things that can happen within the actual, add-on, so.
So it could be a situation where, based on whatever prompt they put out there, they would say, I see maybe there's still some confusion on this topic, let's talk about it
Yeah,
more.
it definitely makes the lesson more informative versus the student just taking notes on the PowerPoint or not even taking notes, literally taking a picture of the PowerPoint that the teacher presented to go back and reference later. It makes instruction and it enlivens and immerses students in the actual instruction. So it's definitely going to be something that improves engagement if used with fidelity.
Are you able to monitor who uses it and who doesn't,
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
to make sure it's getting used?
And this wouldn't be mandated for every teacher to use it.
No.
My only first concern was, oh no, this is another thing that was owed to teachers that they're gonna have to do.
There'd be support. A lot are requesting it though,
Okay.
but there'd be support in a transition period. And if you have an engaging class where students are outperforming,
Right.
then why would we make you do something
Right.
that you don't really necessarily need?
One thing I always told our teachers when I was the principal is, you have an instructional toolbox.
Right.
And our board has provided you with these resources. You don't have to use them all, but you use what you think is best for your class at that time. So you take your instructional toolbox, and this is just something that our teachers can add to their instructional toolbox.
All right, good.
And it'd be just as useful if we were virtual, if we had to go back distance learning, the teacher can
Yeah.
still control.
That's actually what it was
Once
created
they-
for.
yeah, once they put the code in, the teacher then has control of their screen until she releases them.
Or he.
Or he.
Any other, that's actually what it was created for, was virtual. So. Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
The last thing I have is the school resource officer vehicles. We found 12 on Georgia statewide contract. Total price of $436,404, and that's going to come from the money that we just moved from the savings into local capital projects. The cars that we're replacing are anywhere from year 2006 to 2011 with over 200,000 miles on them. So, and we're repairing them left and right. So
that would be a full fleet replacement?
no,
No,
we
we
have
have to do
some
it
that
in
are Rod might be.
There are some that are newer, yeah.
Yeah, some that are newer.
Oh, it's just 12, yeah.
Yeah, it's just 12.
It's most of them. At some point in time, we're going to have to do it. We might as well do it well right now.
We're also, like I said, looking at doing the maintenance fleet, but the statewide contract pricing is not there for those yet. There's a shortage of those.
Any questions about the police vehicles?
Are these, are they already upfitted, or do we have to do stuff to them, or what?
They'll come with everything. Rod had a checklist of everything he wanted on them, and
And that's in that price?
yes.
Thank you very much, Ms. Preston. You might go over the surplus furniture. You want to pull that up in case I can go over it. Okay, it's okay. Mr. Blackerby wants to surplus some of the furnitures, and as per our policy, we're going to put it on Gov Deals, so you can see the stuff. He's just gone through the warehouse, and there's just
Gobs of stuff.
gobs of stuff out there, and he's trying to clean that place up a little bit. And so those are some of the things that he's removing. You know, and as we renovate Golden Isles and the schools that we're renovating in Needwood, we're putting new stuff in there, so we will have more surplus furniture too. So, all right. Any questions about the surplus materials? If you would like a combo desk, you can go on Gov Deals and buy a combo desk. We got 200 of them. So, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, that is all I have for this evening.
Okay. All right, that brings us down to executive session. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for land, legal, and personnel.
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Gibbons, second by Ms. Sams. All those in favor? It is unanimous. At 6 o'clock.
We'll call you when you get back there, okay?
All right, thanks.
My phone's going dead. You might want to call him.
righty. I'll entertain a motion to go back into open session.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Yergin, second by Ms. Gibbons. All those in favor? It is unanimous.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Dr. Yergin, second by Ms. Sams. All those in favor? It is unanimous at 7:02.
Love y'all. See y'all.